In this video, single mothers are discussed, along with what men should know about them before dating them. My acquaintance once admitted to dating an older woman who was a single mother, and she was older. Soon after, she brought up getting married, which ultimately prompted her to ask him that, even though he hardly knew her, if they do get married, they'll have to adopt her son and provide for him as well as her for the rest of their lives. Fortunately, my friend saw right through that, and they broke up. But most men don't, and when they do, it's too late for them to recognize that they were coerced into doing something that the mother had planned all along. And if they do, they face criticism from society for abandoning a decent lady and failing to support her as she navigates her difficult life. He also talked about how women who live in the deep rural West are very different from those who live in cities. Since they require companionship, they frequently marry young. Your kids to someday assist them in maintaining the land. They are isolated because of rural life, so they don't value themselves the way metropolitan women do. They thus gain a lot of weight and count on men to support them for the rest of their lives. People who get divorced often move to cities, where it's hard for them to meet eligible single men. And those who do date them are expected to wed and have children with them as well. I commend my friend for turning down the single mother, because he would have been asked to care for a child who wasn't his and compelled to look after a woman who had had her fair share of lovers in the past. If he had accepted her conditions, it would have been a significant win for her. The women moved to the city after failing to meet a rich farmer or rancher's son willing to marry and father an overweight woman. Urbanization has increased due to female empowerment. As independent women migrate from rural to urban areas, they sometimes move with their former spouse's children. Rural males are too busy working on their farms and ranches to participate in women's mind games and be manipulated. Women migrate to cities to work independently, pursuing the feminist narrative of strong, independent women. Men left rural areas to work in manufacturing in cities. Women moved to cities to work, and men worked in industries to live better than in rural areas. Today's different. People are leaving crowded cities for rural locations where they can afford nicer housing and live in larger homes. After the epidemic, many people have already moved back to rural areas with basic internet connections and power, so they can live more quietly, especially since working from home has become the norm. They did this to cut down on living expenses like utilities and transportation, as well as to protect themselves from viral pandemics like COVID-19, which are much more likely to break out in congested areas. So it is now easier for single mothers in rural areas to find men who have moved there to find a quieter life. Men will need to be on guard in order to avoid being coerced into marrying these women in this situation. If we look at relationships closely, they will come on strong and push for marriage and the adoption of their kids. They are all about conflicts over power, when they want to keep men under their control by using the concept of love. By having children with men, these women can use their money and power more openly and effectively, and women use their resources in extremely unscrupulous ways. I've never met a woman who gave away her money or inheritance. Despite this, they expect men to work hard their entire lives, and then simply give the money to these ladies, who hardly ever extend their legs for them, to keep these males addicted to them. Now that males are aware of this, they are no longer as easily manipulated as they once were. The exams and competitions have become too much for males. I've been burned much too many times to understand what women really desire. However, some men are still a long way from this, which explains why women still engage in this behavior today. Simps with weak willpower are susceptible to seduction, because women identify and take advantage of their flaws. For weak guys, a woman who is exceptionally good in bed will always be a weakness. Men must understand that the hour of pleasure they have in the bedroom is not guaranteed. The lady you're seeing or planning to marry is just doing it to gain access to your resources in the long run, which will enable her to support her lifestyle and satisfy her material and societal needs. She is using you so she can get the social benefits of being married to a trustworthy person, to have a network of friends or potential future partners in case this doesn't work out, and to have financial resources that allow her to purchase upscale clothing, luxury purses, and cars. Rural men can be strong. They lack city men's mental sophistication. Young rural guys fell in love with rural women, married them, and had children because of this, only to divorce after discovering a woman's deception. Urban men who move to the country are wiser. That's why women prefer these men. They know that if they can manage them once, they'll be smarter than them. After that, they can push them to marry and start a stable life with a city working partner, who makes much more money than a farmer. These people move to the country for peace and quiet. Leads to a marriage, which quickly turns into an adoption situation where they have to share their money with a single mother in a rural area. They then split up. Groups suit women. Thus, even if we are all city women who date guys, they finally try to convince them to return to their rural villages, to bring women closer to their circle and neighbors. As a result, women find it easier to control and manipulate their males when they are surrounded by their tribe of other single mothers who are always telling them what to do. They will also be closer to their own families, so they can use their brothers' and fathers' connections in the community. There's something about country and rural women that makes them easier to get along with. They don't tend to be as cunning as the majority of city women. As a result, males typically find it simpler to interact with and date women from the country. But you can't get rid of their inherent femininity. They may appear to be the kind who prefer long-term commitments, but they use that afterwards, even before marriage, to seduce guys in the same way a woman from the city would. This is also because girls in rural areas have less education than girls in cities. Country girls appear to be much more straightforward, understandable, and likable because of this. It's uncommon for country girls to attend college to earn their master's or doctorate. With city girls, that is a fairly typical occurrence. Going back a few decades, women in rural areas didn't even have access to the internet or satellite television. Compared to now, they had significantly less access to popular culture. This meant that they were less susceptible to being persuaded by other women or television programs that taught women how to use men to achieve their own ends. Compared to cities, religion was also far more common in rural areas. As a result, they were even more motivated to settle down when they were young, get married, and have a family. Another crucial point is that women who get married tend to have larger social networks. Married women are not in the company of single women. Women avoid hanging out with other unmarried women out of concern that they could try to seduce their husbands. And when unmarried women see single mothers, it frightens them and makes them want to delay having children, due to the fact that they do not want to risk their lives and bear such a heavy burden. Things are a little different in the metropolis. A single woman with children, for instance, will find it more difficult to connect with other single women without children. Thus, she won't have as much free time as they do. Even though they are less strict than in rural areas, social norms in cities are still similar. Still, married couples and unmarried men and women will socialize together. In urban areas, single women are frightened of becoming single mothers, since it will ruin their social lives. Most of the time, women base their sense of self-worth on this. In remote places, single moms are rejected by their neighbors. Hence, they relocate to urban centers. That dynamic has simply existed for the past 10 years. Gentlemen, I believe you are aware of these dynamics. Ahead of starting a relationship with a rural girl, when your injury forces you to relocate from the city to a farm in Utah, I hope you will be able to comprehend these issues. To give your support, click the thumbs up button. Please leave a comment below if you would like to see more videos like this one. Be sure to give it to the guys who are in the most precarious need of it.